me, but my name is Paul Lachelier. I'm the founder and the director of Learning Life, and so this is the first formal day of the training. Last week was an orientation for those who needed it, and so for the rest of you who didn't attend the orientation, this is just to give you a kind of quick recap as to what's going to be going on. So FD means family diplomacy. Family diplomacy training has two parts. Part one is focused on knowledge development and of developing your knowledge. From today through August 20th, every Sunday, 12 to 1:30 p.m. New York time via Zoom. And then part two of the training is focused on skill development, particularly storytelling. And each of you will be involved in creating a story of your own around family and some sort of issue that affects your family. So that will be happening from August 27th to October 29th, every Sunday, 12 to 1:30 p.m. via Zoom. We're soon going to post a schedule so that everybody will have a clear sense of kind of the full agenda and what's expected in each part, etc. So I just want to note a couple of other things, and then I'm going to be passing it on to Bethany, who is joining us from Arizona in the United States. And she's going to be, she is your teacher today. Today's discussion is going to focus on family, both kind of trying to define family, but also beginning to explore the ways in which families are both changing and not changing across the world. And we'll spend a couple of sessions talking precisely about that. But before we get to that, let me just give you a couple of other things I want to emphasize here. I'm putting this in the Zoom chat. So the first thing is from today onwards, all the applicants who passed their interview will be welcome to attend all the training meetings, but will qualify for a certificate of completion only for part two on family storytelling, which starts, as I mentioned, Sundays, August 27th to October 29th. There are cash awards of $250 for individuals and $500 for families, up to five. There are going to be five of those, up to five of those awards for the most improved. But those are reserved for the people who are participating in both parts one and parts two. And that includes taking a pre-survey and then a post-survey for part one. And then for part two, there's a video recording of your initial storytelling. And then after the training, your final recording of your family storytelling. And we are going to be comparing systematically your survey responses in part one and your storytelling, video recorded storytelling in part two, to determine how much you've improved, and then hence to lay out the cash awards. So I'm going to lay out just a couple of more things that I want to share with you before we start officially. And so hold on a second. So your full attendance and participation is vital if you want to get a certificate of completion or to qualify for the cash awards. I just want to note we do mark you as late if you arrive more than 10 minutes after we start, or if you leave more than 10 minutes before we end. So just to be safe, make sure you show up at the start and be here throughout. There is one caveat to this, and Don Shai or Abdul from Ghana rightly pointed this out in our Zoom chat, not the Zoom chat, the Facebook chat, and that is that if your connection, and so this is the other part of what I'm just putting up in the Zoom chat, if your connection comes in and out during the meeting, but you're here with us from the start all the way to the end, and you just keep cutting in and out, we're not going to count you as absent or as late. And the reason for that is because more often than not, you don't have control over that. And so we want to be fair to you. So we trust, though, that you're not going to use that as an excuse, essentially, to just cut out during parts of the meeting, because it just simply wouldn't make, we hope it wouldn't make sense to do so. We want to make sure that you're in fact here throughout and benefiting from the learning, from the connections that you're making, and not endangering your possibilities for getting a certificate and for qualifying for the for honors certificate and for the cash prizes. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking, see if there are any questions before we move on to the substance of what we're here for today. If there are no questions, we will move on. All of you should be, by the way, part of the Facebook group, the Facebook chat group. I will put those two things in the Zoom chat in a moment. But you should be part of those chat group, because that keeps you apprised of what's going on. And you get all details. You can ask questions there, et cetera, and so forth. And then you should also be part of our Family Diplomacy Initiative group on Facebook as well. And if you're not, I will post that to the chat in a moment. Itai, who's joining us from Zimbabwe, has his hand up. Itai, I'm glad to see you here. Itai had an accident, a car accident, and lost his laptop, I believe, and his phone, something like that. So I'm glad you're well, and that you're able to join us, Itai.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I didn't get any chance to get my pre-survey. So
okay. If you have not done your pre-survey, I'm going to put that in the Zoom chat. You should do that right now, Itai, because we don't want it, whatever's coming next in terms of the training, we don't want it to influence your answers. So I'm going to post this pre-survey right now. Hold on a second. So that is important. If you have not taken the pre-survey yet, you need to do that right now. And I'm going to post it to the Zoom chat. If that means that you need to, let me see here. If it means that you need to, Itai, get off this call and come back to us, go ahead and do that. You will not be in any way, it's just that doesn't make you late because you were here from the start. But go ahead. I just put the Zoom link for the website, or the web link for the pre-training survey in the Zoom chat. You should go ahead and fill that out now. Just make sure for the last part, you have to give yourself 10 minutes. It's the last question on the survey. Give yourself a full 10 minutes to fill that out.
yeah, all right. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Itai. Farzana, you have a question. Go ahead. And I think you're joining us from Pakistan, right?
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Yes. Go ahead.
I just want to know, I have one of the questions, that how we are aware to find out the information that our pre-survey has been submitted or not. Is there any mechanism which will ensure the submission of our pre-survey form?
Yes, you can ask us during this, or you can ask in the Zoom the Facebook chat. And Farzana, I see that you filled out the survey, so it's confirmed that you filled it out.
Okay, fine.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
In the pre-survey, we are fill out the question number 12. In last meeting, I also asked about that concept. It is possible that we discuss more about the concept of the 12th number, about the citizenship, citizen diplomacy, like this.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out your question. Is it possible to what for the?
I just want to know that there in pre-survey there is a question number 12, and maybe the most of the participants have no clarity about the citizenship diplomacy. So I need to discuss more about it.
I wouldn't worry about that. You should in the pre-survey, you just tell us what you know. Again, if
Yeah.
you don't know very much about citizen diplomacy, that's not a problem. We're just trying to get a sense of where you are before the training. And then we're going to ask you those same questions after the training, after basically August 20th onward. For a few days, we'll be doing the post-survey. And there, hopefully, you'll be able to tell us more about citizen diplomacy because you'll know more at that time.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
And there is another suggestion, or maybe this is an idea of my side, that if we share the agenda and concept of the training, where what is the main feature of this training and what is the main agenda of the each meeting, it will be very helpful for us to understand the concept, and maybe we will make some information about that, and hopefully we will be make actively participate in our hand. Is it possible that you will share the agenda of the all trainings,
Yes.
all sessions?
Yes, exactly. So I'm planning in the next couple of days to create a kind of thorough document which will lay out like every meeting and what every meeting is about, and also the steps that you're supposed to be taking at different parts of that. So yes, that will be coming soon.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know if I'm going to get your name right. Zineng, I think it's something like that, who is from China, but joining us from Canada, I believe.
Yes, yeah, this pronunciation is okay, no worries about it. I have a very quick question, and maybe it may not be quick, but my question here is that what's the definition of family in learning life? Because it's very important. In this day and age, the definition of families have changed so largely. Like in the past, maybe like in the last century, the definition of family in North America was the heterosexual nuclear family, like one father and one mother, and with several children who are younger than 24 years old. But currently, Canadian government more likely to provided the definition of families like common law family or census family definition. But like because we are from different cultural backgrounds, and our definitions of families are quite different and various. Like maybe in different countries, like in China, we have so many of us have extended families, which include like not only parents, children, but also some relatives and grandparents. So for this reason, I want to ask what's the definition of family in this program? I suppose it's very important for us to consider and to talk about.
Okay, yes. And in fact, that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to reserve that discussion for Bethany, because she's going to be handling that. I'm not the expert on this. So just hold on to that question, and she will answer it. And we'll have, in fact, a discussion around this stuff. Bilal, who I don't remember where you're joining us from. Bilal, where are you joining us from?
Hello, I'm joining from Pakistan, and I want to know, I'm still not on the Facebook group chat of and what's the process of joining that? Because yesterday someone emailed me that she will add me in the Facebook group, but I'm still not in the group.
April, it looks like you're nodding your head. You have an answer to that?
So I just friended you on Facebook. If you can just add me back, I can't put you into the group until like I'm your friend on Facebook. So once you just accept it, and then I'll add you to the group chat.
Great. Thanks, April. So Bilal, you have a friend request on Facebook. You need to confirm friendship with her, and then she will add you immediately to the Facebook chat.
Oh, did you see that on the Facebook group? Someone says they've tried to get into the meeting.
That they're trying to get into the meeting and they're not able to?
Yes. Yes. Do you have like the waiting room enabled?
Yes, so they should be, they probably are just having problems with their internet, but you can just communicate with them and just say, keep trying. The waiting room is activated. And yeah, Mary, if you can just keep tabs on what's happening in the Facebook chat in case somebody's trying to get in or something like that. Okay, so we are already at 12:19, and I want to move on to the substance of today, which is not me, nor it's in fact Bethany. So I want to introduce you to Bethany first, with a little bit of information. So Bethany, as you might see, is Bethany Bustamante Van Vliet. She's on your screen. And let me give you a little bit of information about her. So Bethany is she's a teaching professor at the Sanford School at Arizona State University in the United States. It's in Western United States. She's a teaching professor and director of the online graduate program in family and human development in the Sanford School. She's a proud Sun Devil, which I gather is the mascot of her university. And she's received her bachelor's degree in psychology and her PhD in educational psychology with a focus on measurement, statistics, and methodological studies from Arizona State University. She's been teaching at the Sanford School since 2007. Her teaching activities emphasize statistics, research methods, parenting, and human development. Her scholarly interests include parenting, positive psychology, such as hope and kindness, family processes, personal and family narratives, the measurement of race and ethnicity, ethnic self-identification, and power in longitudinal data analysis. So, so if you like quantitative methods, don't ask me, ask Bethany. So I'm going to pass it on to Bethany, who's going to be focusing today on family as a concept, but also kind of beginning to tell us about and sharing with us information about trends and patterns in families across the world. Bethany.
Hello, hopefully I sound okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I'm sure you all are most interested in the longitudinal data analysis. That's just the most exciting part of what I do. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I got to do this last year, and I just think it's so cool to get to spend time together talking about family. I'm passionate about family on many levels. I have a family. I have, I'm trying to think of how, I've got 6 kids. 4 of them are biological, 2 of them I fostered and I adopted. And then I now have 2 foster children in addition to that. So I might seem a little sleep deprived, or I am sleep deprived, because I've got a 3-year-old and now a 4-week-old. We've had her for 2 weeks. So there's not a lot of sleep happening, even though she's an angel baby. So personally, I care about family. I care about how my children are supported, how I can support my children, how policy impacts my children and our family, but also academically, I study family, I teach family. I know the benefits, the risks, the challenges, all those things that combine with family. And so again, getting to be with you all, and people already talking about defining family, I can tell you all are, you're passionate. So this is really a treat for me. Let me do the whole like boring setup, open up my stuff. I'm going to share, which means it messes everything up for me for a little bit. Sorry, I always hate this part of, I got to move it so I can see your faces again. And now my chat window disappeared. Okay, I can't see any chats. So if there are chats, just shout out. And I see a hand. Leroy, you want to jump in, or you're just ready for the questions?
Leroy is joining us from Liberia. Leroy, you have a question?
Yeah, I not really a question, but there's a information I received from Modba. He said they're trying since 4 o'clock in our country to join, but it has been very difficult for him. His connection is very poor, so he wants to keep trying till he joins later.
Okay. Duly noted, Leroy. Thanks.
All right.
And now I think I can see chat. So I think we're good. And everyone can see the slide. Looks like it's supposed to look okay. So that's a little bit about me. I also, there's my book. Can't really tell. I helped write a book on family processes with the person who was supposed to be my co-presenter today, but she's ditching out today, but you'll meet her next week. She also happens to be my mom. So there's all sorts of family stuff happening over here. So we're going to talk about what is family, and a great point was already brought up. That's important, right? That's a foundation of what we're doing. It's understanding what are we even talking about here. And so I want you all to help me understand what is family and what is family to you. So I have an assignment for you right now. I'm going to keep it kind of short because I know I've got a lot packed in here. I want you to take a look around your room, wherever you're at, or on your desk or something. Find an object that represents family to you, or that makes you think of family. So you've got 30 seconds, 1 minute. If you need to go off camera, grab something that to you says family. And I got something here. Y'all are so prepared. You already have something, huh? You're quick. Okay, let's see if it'll let me write on here.
Are we tapping it, or are we going to speak it out?
Are you what? Sorry.
Are we tapping it through the chat?
You go for it. You can put it in the chat, or you can tell me what your object is. You can do both. So anyone want to start off sharing what they found and what it means to them? Anybody?
I will start, and I'll start just by pointing to my camera and actually raising a photo. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a photo, which is just a photo on my camera of one of some of my family members. I have 3 siblings. I'm the youngest of 4, and you see some of them there, plus other in-laws at a Thanksgiving dinner. So my phone and the photos on it represent my family.
Love that. Anyone else have an object they want to share?
I can go. So I have a deck of Uno cards that I always have on me. You never know you're gonna play a game of Uno, and then on top of that, I growing up, we always play Uno. I've always brought my family and friends close together, or it created drama because you never know. But yeah,
I love that. And now we're hearing what family. Part of your idea of family is what you do together, right? And those activities, along with the kind of symbolic meaning of that. Family photos. There's a ton of what we can do with family photos. And when we talk about family narratives and storytelling, those family photos can play a really important role. Anyone else? I have a permanent marker. It blurs everything. A permanent marker, because this is just what was around on my desk. But I think family leaves a mark on us, right? The family that we come from. That can be good and bad. And it doesn't mean that it's necessary. You can scrub it and it can eventually come out. But I think family makes a big impact on who we are. Family stories. Yes, family stories. Your phone. I see a hand. Joseph?
Yeah, I'm off camera, but I wanted you to look at the picture because we talked about family photos. Those are 5 of the 8 boys that I adopted from the foster care system. And I am single. So at the definition of our family and what reminds me of our family is a togetherness. I've adopted so many kids from 17 to 31 that we've never all been in the same room together. So, those are the 5 that I could wrangle up at that time, although they've all met each other.
I love that. We've got pieces of definition of family that we're going to talk about there too. Anything else? Yes, Bilal?
Can I speak?
Yes.
I think the family is a group of number of people who either have a blood relation, or they can have a blood relation, or they don't have a blood relation, but they live in a one house with each other. They share their feelings with each other. They talk to each other every night. They have dinner with each other. They care about each other. Like, these are the group of people who just not live under one roof, but they live for each other.
I love that.
That would be my definition.
And we're going to talk about some other definitions too. So that's a perfect, we're getting ready to actually define it. Farzana? Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I feel that the family is a composition of the individuals, because of the human being is a social animal and he can't live without the family. And there is a I feel that there is a different level of the family. Whenever a child has been born, he become a part of the a family member, and this the composition of the family is with the mother, father, grandparents, and their siblings. But at the whenever a person growing up and he moved to his majority age and he become a major person and he got married, then another family he creating in the world, and that family is a composition of the husband, wife, and their children. So this is the as continuous and procedure procedure of the world. So it is raising day by day, and without the family a member cannot be life, because being a social animal, a human being want to share his feelings here. He want care, he want love, he want understanding with each other. So a family is a very important composition of the individual life. I think feel that.
I love that. Okay, I think we're all ready. We want to define family. So I want to let you all talk about that. Does anyone else have an object before I move on? And I'm going to take your hands to define. We're actually going to try and write out a definition together. So I'm going to hold your thoughts. I'm going to get to you, because we are moving from just what represents family to us, but what family is. And this is important. So a Spanish philosopher, George Santayana, has said family is one of nature's masterpieces. So think of it, which I agree. It's wonderful. Most of us are born into families, and families are it's where we first encounter the world, is through our family. Our families can all look very different. They may be rich or poor, biological, blended, step, adopted, monogamous, polygamous, married, unmarried. There are many things that can be considered a family. But it's been said that nearly everyone on earth has family ties. And so it's really important to most people, and it's very personal to most people. But all the variations and differences in family and family roles can make it really hard to define family. It's one of those things I often think that we feel like we know it when we see it, but sitting down to write a definition of what it is can be challenging. And I love this, Mary, about a quilt in your grandparents' house when you're growing up. And it makes you feel comforted, again, which kind of touches on the role of family, right? There's a piece of that comfort that comes with family, being tucked in with it when you slept at their house, made up of scraps of other materials, reminds me of how family brings together unique individuals. Oh, see, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful symbol of family. You all have touched on some definitions of family. Here's some others, and these come from all over the place. Some of these are definitions for work. Let me see, one of these talks about, a dependent. Yeah. And a child under 18. So, when do you get benefits? That there's a definition of family that matters for that. There's definitions here for research as we strive to study family. Who are we studying? There's definitions here that are personal. There's definitions here related to policy. You don't need to read them all, but just in this page, you can see there's differences in how we define family. And so now I want you all to help me define family. We've already had some great examples. Oh my God, I've got angry dogs. We've touched on the things that families do as part of defining family. my co-speaker is making things.
Can you say it in the chat?
Okay, so how would you define family? You can go ahead and put in chat. I know this is something, a couple of videos. Oh, I love it. I need to make sure I get a record of this chat so that I can keep these links. Put some stuff in chat because I know lots of people have ideas of how you would define family. What is family to you? And then I'm going to have some of you speak. You've had your hands up, but some of these things are, you know, who is it family? Who do you count as family? Our friends' family, our pets' family, all of these things. Let's think about it. So, Bergam, you have your hand up, and I'm sorry for everybody if I mispronounced this.
Yes, Begum is correct. Thank you. Sorry, I turned off my cam because my connection is not very good. I will try to make a very brief definition about family. I think the definition of family depends on the context, the culture, and the social environment. So, yes, as you said, some can define, you know, some people can have just a dog and himself or herself, and these two, one human being and one animal, can form a family for some people. Some families are extended families, some are very small, like nucleus families. But according to my own view, I think families are generally formed through marriage. And so a husband, wife, and kids are made, like, according to me, are the, you know, conventional meaning of what a family is for me. Thank you.
I was going to write answers, but that's just not going to work. So we're just going to have to hold it in our minds. Okay, I love that. You covered a lot, and I love the context, culture, social environment piece of that, which means that perhaps in different situations, something might be a family, and at another time we might not think of it as a family. Zanine?
Yes, you know, like feminine is a very, very early term. It's pretty young. It's originated from like 18th century. Yeah, because I'm also taking the sociology of feminine at UBC. So I'm very you know, aware of the definitions changes of feminines. And I realized that in different social or historical contexts, the definitions of feminines varies very, very greatly. You know, like for example, maybe just in the last century, because of the Cold War, the definitions of feminine in North America were restricted to a very, very small range of people, like heterosexual couple and with several children. And also the women and men were, you know, like shaped and set into their own roles, their social roles. And it's more like, so, you know, like it's not very restricted. It's very restricted. And currently, however, in terms of the UN definition, I mean, like the United Nations definition, the feminine is defined as is defined by their economical, social, economical functions. You know, like instead of by their genders or by their, you know, wages, or but I really find it's very hard to define a family member. Like, how can you, because in my heart and in my mind, my kid Patty is one of my family members. And actually it's, you know, like it really matches the definitions of family member, like to give me emotional support. So he should be one of my family members. However, in other situations, like feminines can be monogamy, you know, like polyamorous. So you know, like it's very hard to define what is feminine, but maybe we don't need to define or label a very specific definition. We just need to see what functions in this society are great or maybe are suitable to this society, and these definitions are good and are great or maybe not bad.
I love that. Great points. And too, that maybe we don't need to have something specific drawn on paper. Terence or Tia?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Hi, everyone. Yeah, what I understand by family is, for me, is just because my grandfather used to tell me, your brother is not only the one that you think is your brother is everywhere. People will be nice to you everywhere, and those are your brother. So for me, I know we have internal family and external family. The internal family might be your wife, your children, your mother, and sisters, brothers. So we have like cousins, and we have also people we meet along the way. We consider like family because of the treatment they give us, and what they are doing in your life. You take them. Even me now, I have some people I consider like my family, but they are never belong to my family. But I consider them like my family. So we pull along very well. We do things nicely. We communicate. We collaborate. So for me, I understand that family is not only you are within family. Anyone, our community, we have a lot of family all around, because at the end, if you analyze your life, who really help you is not even your family member. It should be different people that you don't even know them actually. So you get to consider them like your family members. So that's how me I see, I consider family.
I
Thank
like
you.
that. Mohammed, I'm going to let Leroy speak real quick because he said his network is not good. So Leroy, if you want to speak, if it's working right now, you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah. So I hope I'm live. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So basically, family, from my own knowledge, is a smaller unit of every society that works together to build each other's up. It doesn't only refer to blood line or blood conduct or related people, but a family can be from different areas. But once that person is helping to build you up and you are also helping to build them up, they can also be your family. That's why I define family as the smallest unit of every society that works together to build each other up and hold each other constant. And I was not actually giving the privilege to show my object and tell why I have this. For my family, we eat together, so we love the pans. We eat together because we have the notion that says the family that share together, stay together, and hold together and support each other with one goal and one mind. So that's why I actually found this as my own object. So that's just my little definition of family.
I love that. Fantastic. Y'all are touching on so many aspects here. Mohammed.
Hello. It's nice to be here with you, wonderful people, again. Family is actually a very big common name that, it covers a lot of different things. But personally, for me, I can define family that, it is a group or a place where we can share our sorrows and our happiness, where it is the source of getting motivation or doing something there. And it depends on how we can define the family. We can define family personally for the specific family where we were born there, and like our mom, daddy, and siblings. And also we can define family as our the groups, or for example, we have an organization or academy or a group where you can work, do something for a purpose of, you have a purpose, you have an aim there, you are working with some people. It's also a group. And also nowadays we can see that not only physically, just we can have our family in our environment or in that region, but we can have our families on social media. I mean, like this, like family diplomacy. Like here, we are a big group here, and just we are sharing our stories, and we are telling our ideas, and we are meeting new people from different backgrounds and different countries. So these are all related to the family. Yeah, family is a really a big source of things that we can get from them, and we can get motivation, help, support, anything. And the world without family is, I think, somehow confused. It's nothing.
Yeah, really great points. And some great chats coming in too. There's so much, like, we could talk about this all day, but I love how many of you have touched on different definitions that will probably change based on purpose, right? If you're thinking about who are you responsible for paying for, then maybe some friends who are like family become less family at that time, right? But maybe you're not going to pay for their college tuition or something. But in other contexts, they are family because they're doing the function of family. Nick, we're going to have Nick, and then we're going to move on to the next slide so we can keep the chats going.
So hi everybody. According to me, what a family is the people who are united and the people who share the same cause, either by being blood related or either by socially connected with each other, and people who emotionally are well connected. And if a person gets something which is wrong, there is always ready to correct him as a family. And also, above all, is people who are always together and the people who really love each other and care for one another. That's a family, according to me.
Love it. Now you all probably can't read hardly anything I wrote on there. What's sad is that writing is maybe better than my writing usually is. What is the source of family? Well, that's a great question. Where does that definition come from, and what matters in terms of what tells us what family is? And again, I think that's going to be related to context. Let us know thoughts. Y'all can reply to that specific question now in Zoom, and I'll keep an eye on that. So it's hard to do. It's hard to define family. It'll differ from person to person. Some people will say marriage is a part of it. Some people will say children is a part of it. Some people will say what we do helps us define family, or what people do for us defines family. No matter how we define it, though, it is important. And there's consequences for how we define family, including in the government, right? There's policies and laws related to how family is defined, whatever that is, to determine things like what happens to property when somebody dies, to determine who can sign contracts and what kind of contracts can be signed. It relates to who gets benefits. Since I work at my university, I get a discount for tuition for my dependents, for my children. But the college has to then define what is family to decide who gets those benefits, and who gets parental leave, who counts as a parent in a family. So there's implications for this, but that doesn't mean that there's one correct definition. And I think all of you touched on the fact that context, culture, social environments, those relationships, all those things come into play when we're defining family. But keep that in your mind as we talk about family and changes in family, what it is exactly that you're thinking of when you define that. And but also on the policy level, when we're advocating for families, who are we advocating for, or who are we trying to advocate for? Because sometimes our definition will be different from the people that we are coming to ask for certain resources or supports. Okay, I don't know how to make that go away. We might have a yellow line forever. That's okay. It won't even let me erase.
And the yellow line looks to me like pork. It says pork. I wasn't sure. I think it's trying to say work, right?
Work, yeah, work. That's great, and that's related in the work that we do. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. How much does it matter that we have? It's so funny that it won't let me erase. There's an erase link on erase. Oh, maybe over here. I mean, I do like it. I appreciate. Oh, now we're just gonna. Oh, look. Nope, it's still there. What if I do this? Do you want to keep discard? There we go. And we're gonna come here. No, now we'll come here. No, it came back. At least it came back for me. Now it's on my whole screen.
It's not a big deal if you
Okay,
if
we might just keep work. It is, it's magic. It's a magic annotation that will never go away. Maybe if I do pointer options, that's so funny. It won't even let me. That's okay. That's cool. Work is good. There's a lot of meaning in that word. We got to do the work. Okay. Now I got to reset my thing here. Okay, so we have a hard time defining necessarily what a family is, but a lot of you touched, and I think we had more consistent responses with this in what families do. And that seems to be something that when we talk about it, what we feel is related to what families do for each other and their role. And even in research, there is some consensus on the things that families do and the roles that families play. And we're going to talk about that. Families can all look different, but often, despite cultural, ethnic, religious, social, economic differences, there's these consistent roles that families take on. So one of those is reproduction, procreation, bearing and rearing children. It's within families that children are born and children are raised. Not all families raise their children, but at this point, this is where children come from, right? They're born into families. And related to this, another kind of job of families is socializing children. And socializing means the process of learning who people are supposed to be in their society. And that's really important. And the role that people are supposed to play, the way that they're supposed to play in their society can depend on race, on class, gender, ethnicity, culture. And that training, learning how to do that happens over a lifetime, but the family is what provides that initial socialization. Which is a really big responsibility. We're creating little people to go out and to know what they're supposed to do and who they're supposed to be on some level. Socialization teaches us norms and values of a society. It tells us about the status and roles that we take on in society and how the institutions function and how our role is and how it fits within those institutions. And we need those social skills to survive. And I think someone else mentioned that we're social creatures. And so family is kind of the root of learning how to do that. And again, you can think of all these different families, all the different structures you discussed. Families are socializing their children. Okay, another common theme for families is attempting to provide for them emotionally and providing affection. And we had a lot of you touched on this, that it's important. It can be the parents that are providing this for children, but it can also be siblings. And yes, we're going to get to this. It can also be siblings, grandparents, other kin who provide emotional support. That definition of family and where that net falls can include different people, but despite who it is, that same role of providing that emotional support is there. And families can determine who to be close with, who to emotionally have bonds and connection and intimacy and closeness that can be defined in the family. And we know that those affectional needs, those emotional needs, that's a basic human desire. That's something that everybody needs, and we can get it in different ways and through different definitions of who families are. So for example, in some countries, women might be separated and kept in separate quarters and maybe be secluded. But what they've found is that these women develop particularly strong emotional bonds to each other. And this can be between wives, co-wives, mothers-in-law, sisters-in-law. That affection, that emotional aspect of support is still there and still really important. Hands. Farzana?
Yeah, I raised a hand. I would like to mention one of the things that what to do to families. I think that like a basic thing is the family is providing the identity of any individual.
I love that. And we're going to touch on that. Y'all are getting ahead of me. You already know the answers. We also had someone who said mentally. So that's kind of the emotional and mental, and then also financial. We're going to talk about that too.
And also along with that, if the family is providing the identity and the care, the emotional, and also providing the protection among the society, we are feeling that we are protected.
Yes, and I love the different levels that we can look at this for. We can look at it personally, and then we can look at it more broadly. Okay, so they provide affection and emotion, which again is a very consistent answer from all of you. And oh, yes, Janine?
Yes, I have a question about the first standard of what do family do. It's well and well children. However, like not very maybe in this day and age, so many families will have children, like in East Asia because of the increase of women's education level. And even though there are women getting married they do not prefer to have children because having children in East Asia means that they are very likely to be unpaid labor in their families. So they are, like less likely to have children. So, but I don't think they cannot be, categorized into families. And she and her husband can also be included into family definition, but they don't have children. So, like maybe I cannot reach a consensus with the first standard of what do families do and on these slides.
Well, and that's a great point. And that's a great thing to even discuss and debate, right? In terms of family, are children necessary? And I agree that two people can be a family, which means then, and if they choose not to have children and not to raise children, that might not apply. And we also know that there are families where there is no affection and emotional support potentially too, right? So some of these apply in different ways and at different times. And I would say the majority of people who come together at this point, it could change in the future. The majority are still having children. And so we might say that this is often the case, that bearing and rearing children is a part of what a family does. But it doesn't have to be, it doesn't define what a family is. So it's something that many, many families will do, but without it, it doesn't mean that they don't have a family. But again, that's something that could be debated and discussed among people.
Okay, gotcha, thanks.
And I would ask what you all think, but I think I'm probably taking up too much time. I'm trying to, we got all the demographics still to go. So affection, emotional support. Another thing that they do, and again, you all beat me to it, they provide for each other economically, typically. So families are usually responsible for the care and economic provision of their members. What defines care and the expectations of care can differ from culture to culture and from family to family. For example, some families might say it's my job to pay for my child's college education, and other families say that is not my job. That could be a personal family thing, but then there's also societal expectations of what we pay for, what we don't pay for, what we economically do to support family members and what we don't. Some argue that families provided more in the past than they do today, because now we do have, in many cases, more government and social institutions that can kind of fill gaps and provide supports, whereas in the past, if someone needed to be cared for, it fell on the family. There weren't as many options for maybe care facilities and social programs to help support people. But yet there's a huge importance on providing for our family members. And so we see in some countries, schools, workplaces, welfare agencies, and social services can provide some of that caretaking role. And that's why we see that there's difference in exactly what we see as expectations for providing for people. And in some countries, there are fewer of those resources, and so it falls more on the family. We also see that the economic condition or the class of families around the world affects how children and other family members are provided for and for those expectations. And policies and laws, ideology can vary and have a large impact on family functioning. For example, we know, in some countries there are laws about having to visit family members frequently, for having to provide financial needs or spiritual needs for family members, and that's written into the law. Whereas other places, if you have an older parent who needs support, you're not legally responsible to do anything, and maybe there's less of an expectation for it. So it's interesting how our culture, our personal expectations and experiences tie to policy and expectations, right? And they influence each other. And that's something we'll talk about, especially next week when we talk about kind of family issues and family concerns. Another thing, and this gets to the identity piece, families provide identity and status to their family members. One author explains the family provides its members with a social identity, which is exactly what was said just a few minutes ago. Children are born into their parents' social class, race and ethnicity, religion, and so forth. Some children have advantages throughout life because of the social identity they acquire from the parents, while others face many obstacles because the social class or race and ethnicity into which they were born is at the bottom of the social hierarchy. So family is the place where race and class and gender and ethnicity all come together. Bilal.
From the discussion and from this slide, I think there's no single definition for the family we can make. Like there's no any general definition for the family we can make. Like for every region, for every in religion, religiously or ethnically, or like for specific regions, like in Asia, the people believe the definition of family is different, but in the West, the people believe the definition of family. So in general, we can't make any basic definition of a family, can we?
Probably not one that everybody agrees with. I'm sure some of us could make our own definition that we think captures everything, but not one that everyone, or maybe even one that we think applies in all situations. It's challenging, which is interesting about family because it's so personal and it's so universal, and yet it's so diverse and different in our understanding and experiences of family. Really good point. Farzana?
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, as such, we are discussing what to do the families do, and we are taking the point that the family is responsible to provide the affection, emotional support, provide each other to economically support, status, identity, protection. These are the main essential characteristics of the family. But I just want to know that in this stage, we are talking about the family and the effect of the family life. But I am talking on the concept of the Asian region about the right of the transgender, because sometimes in Asia region, maybe in all over the world, different countries providing the rights of the transgender, but in our area, in our region, mostly the transgender peoples are deprived from their family life. So we need to also talk about this context, and I just want to know that you are working for as an ambassador of the family life and impact of the family life. Is there any work, any awareness raising about the right of the family effect upon the transgender peoples?
Well, there's huge. Okay, I'm getting chats in. That's a huge conversation, and the importance of family and those family connections and bonds. And someone mentioned family boundaries earlier. You talked about boundaries of right and wrong, but also in general, family boundaries of who is family within your own family. The idea of cutting people off, I think you talked about people being deprived of family and the support from family. So as families define who is still in their family and who is not in their family, those have huge implications. And there's huge mental health and social and physical health implications for having that family support versus not having that family support. And this is something that is on an individual family level, but also on a policy level, and needs to be addressed on both levels, right? And how we can socialize or encourage a culture that allows those boundaries to encompass our family members and be probably less quick to exclude members from our definition of family. It's a really great and important issue and conversation. But we could talk about it for 3 hours, I think. So if you have thoughts and ideas, put them in the chat for sure. And it's something we can talk about. We're going to talk about some of this stuff again. You're stuck with us me, and eventually someone else for another 2 weeks. So put it in the chat so I have a record of things that you want to talk about or issues you want to talk about, and we can bring that in, and then we can get the research and things like that. Can we say that family provides? Hey, it depends on your definition of what you mean by that. But I think for sure, when we talk about the socialization, these are things that families do, I think, in functioning positive families. The best things in life happen in families often, but also, I'm getting off track, but the worst things can also happen in family life, right? When these things are not done correctly. And so that socialization piece, yes, we can socialize people to learn right and wrong, we can be socializing children towards hate and prejudice and these other things, right? We can be teaching the wrong lessons in families, and that's for sure. And in actuality, I think every family teaches some great lessons and some not so great lessons. That's just in any family, even a healthy functioning family. So yeah, I think families can provide hate, but hopefully not in a, we can do things to have a more positive, supportive family. If you have thoughts or other comments related to that, add them to the chat. Leroy, and then we're going to go on to the next slide.
Yeah, so I was thinking I have a question to ask. From the first to the second slide, I began to realize that families should bear children, not only bearing children, but they should also be able to rear those children. And that have to do with their affection and emotional support. So what if I have a family member who was not partaker of the bearing of the children my mom had, but the person is supportive to the family? Should I not consider that person to be part of my family just because maybe he was not partaker of the bearing of the children?
That's a great question. And that, again, if we're talking about on a personal level, there's definitions and experiences that help define who we define as family. I mentioned that 2 of my kids were adopted, and we still have close relationships to their grandparents, to some of their cousins, I think they have 13 grandparents total across all these different things. And in our family, we define all of them as family. All of my kids call them grandma and grandpa so-and-so, and we talk about them as family. So our definition, what I've seen, has expanded. But that can differ for individuals who might feel like this person had no role in my life. This person's not my family. Maybe this person is a biological, birth father, but since there was no rearing, I don't define that person as part of family. Or maybe there's some in-between space. I think that can fall on a very personal level, but then it can have implications for other things. And the law might not care about some of these things, right? They don't care if maybe they were involved for certain things. Okay, y'all are giving like great thoughts. And the really cool thing about families, we could talk about all of these things indefinitely, I think. Okay, so we talked about some of the roles of families. I'm going to breeze through some of this a little bit because we've touched on it, and I'm almost out of time. There are many types of families. Families look like everything, and that's what we've seen in our definitions. Some of the key types of families that you'll see in research and conversations: the nuclear family, it's the most common and the most universal arrangement, and it's been that way for centuries. It consists of the biological father, and we've heard this in some of the definitions: biological mother, biological or adopted children. Sometimes you'll hear people refer to the nuclear family as a traditional family, but those are not the same thing. In the traditional family in the US, the traditional family means a working father, a non-working mother, and children at home. And that family arrangement is not universal and ongoing. And it was really only in the 50s that the majority of people even existed that way. Sorry, I'm also following chat. So we have the nuclear family. Extended family, again, you touched on this. That refers to generations of family, and often generations of family that live together in one household. But, and I really like this, scholars have recognized that we also have functionally extended families. So they might not all live under one roof, but they maintain contact and they help each other as needed. And so, for example, my parents don't live under my roof, but I would definitely consider me having a functionally extended family. When I need kids, when I need someone to help watch kids during a meeting, when I need to transport kids somewhere, whatever, I have these extended family members. And often whether or not extended family members live under one roof is related to economics. So it's not necessarily, sometimes we put values on if they live under the roof, there's more or less love, or if they don't live in the same house, there's more or less love, but that's not the case. It can vary. And so it's often something related to economics. And the cool thing is that these multi-generational family members can really enrich our lives. They provide a sense of stability. They share heritage. When we talk about family storytelling, that's a piece of that. They share talents. They share history with family members. And often these family members are interdependent. So I mentioned that I'll ask my parents for help with kids, for help with transportation, maybe something like that. But sometimes I also help them when they need something done on their computer, or they need help with taking care of the yard. I send my kids over to help mow the lawn. And so these multi-generational families, there's a lot of back and forth, an interdependent relationship. Single parent families, that's not just one thing, right? When we talk about single parent families, there's many types of single parent families. There's single parent families that result from divorce, that result from death, that result from having a child out of wedlock, that is result from adoption or fostering a child. So there's different types of single parent families. And we see that they're increasing in the United States. The United States, I'll show a graph a little bit way above. And single parent families can provide amazing love, support, and guidance for their children. But it's also important to realize that there are potentially challenges. There's higher risk of poverty and some difficulties academically and socially and emotionally. And so that's where we need to make sure, what are we doing and likely advocating for to support all families and help reduce risk that can result. And again, all single parent families can be different for different reasons, but there's more chance that they might need some additional supports. And then we also have, y'all mentioned this, polygamous families. I lost my notes, I'm running out of time. Multiple wives or husbands. And childless, child-free families. This was mentioned just a little bit ago. So childless families, the definition, if we're getting technical, is that they want children but can't have them. And sometimes this can, they may choose to adopt or use other forms of having children, or they may not. And child-free families are families that choose not to have children and they don't want children. And what's interesting is today, about 19% of women, so in the United States, they did a little study and they found that 19% of women between 40 and 44, they don't have children. 47% of women between 15 and 44 are childless. And I think I'm going to show you some charts in a little bit just to keep this shorter. Okay, so we've talked about the things families do can be different, and what families look like can be different, and my font got messed up, but that says families are important. No matter what the family looks like, it's important. I'm meeting people in the chat. Hello, welcome.
And Bethany, just a quick question. The stats you just gave on childless families, are they for US families or is that global?
These were US families and actually only in one state, but I'm going to show, and I think the statistics I have for child-free and childless families are only in the United States. I couldn't find anything globally at this point because I think it's so much higher in the United States right now. But I'll show some more specific stats for that. And I can see if I can find anything globally. It's kind of new. I think it's new to, they're starting to separate childless and child-free. They didn't always ask questions that helped us understand these two groups. And they would also not ask whether or not people plan to have children as something different from wanting to have children. It gets complicated. But it's a really interesting thing to pay attention to.
If I'm understanding the distinction correctly, childless means these are people who did not intend, they intended to have kids but could not, whereas child-free means that was a deliberate choice on their part, they don't want to have kids.
Yes, and I'll have some numbers for that. It's increased. In one study, it was 25% of, I think that was in a study in Michigan, 25% of people had chosen to be child-free, which again has implications. We're going to look at birth rate, so that'll be related to that. So other things may change, but we start and end with family. Sorry, y'all, I already talked fast and I'm going even faster. I got 15 minutes to go through, oh my gosh, I have 52 slides. We'll have some go over next. So child-free families could be LGBTQ families, but not necessarily, right? LGBTQ families can have children, and we talked about, and there's different ways of bringing children into a family too. So, okay. So here's family. Some of my family, that's me and my little people. And that's my brother and his little people, and then my parents there. Okay, questions, comments. I'm going to give you all like 30 seconds because I want to get at least to some of the demographic information. Anything so? Yeah, you've been doing a really good job of asking questions as we go and sharing really great thoughts. Leroy.
Yeah. So the single parents family, right? I want to ask a question about the single parent family. Suppose I have a single mother or single father, and he or she do not want to get married, or let me say doesn't want to get married because probably of the past experience. So as probably the first child of my mother or my father, should I encourage my dad or my mom to go into another relationship as the first child of the home, and even though I do not say in their relationship, but I feel or deem it necessary to encourage them because I need somebody around to call them mom. So should I do so, or should I just let it be because it doesn't concern me?
That's a huge question. And there's all sorts of context. I think there are benefits to having two parents potentially, but it depends on who the person is, and it depends on the relationship. We know that step parenting it can be tricky, and there's research on how to do step parenting in the best way possible. And so it's really not a yes or no answer. It depends on who the person is and if they can follow some of these guidelines that help create a healthy, as healthy a possible relationship between other children and this new parent figure that is in there. So it's a complex question, but it's a good one, and it can potentially be beneficial to have a second person to be helping. But yeah, it all depends. Chia, I'm sorry, your hand was, I never saw it go down, so I didn't know if you were raising your hand again. Jump in. Sorry if I was ignoring your hand.
Yeah, Bethany, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I have a question. The question was like, how do you call maybe, let's say, an NGO who decided to like cater for children all over the place, or let me say decide to sponsor some children to school? How do you call this particular like NGO? Let me say NGO decided to sponsor a particular children, and will you call them a family?
That's a good question. And there's another debate, is because we have organizations and individuals who take on some of these roles of family. My off the top of my head thought is providing potentially just one of those roles that we talked about probably doesn't to that child constitute family to them. Sorry, people are walking in. And so we talked about like emotional support, right? A school counselor can provide emotional support to a child, but since that person is providing just one of those roles, it's probably not constituting family, because the family does more than that. And so this organization is providing an important role of support, economic support and education, but it's just a piece of what a family does. And so it probably, but they could provide other things and do things in a way where there's a face that this child knows that they would consider family. But I would say they're maybe family-like in the roles that they're providing. But like, show me in your chats your thoughts and comments and ideas for that, everybody, because that's a great question. Yeah, and trying to care for these children. I look at doing foster care, and the idea is that we're trying to give these children family while they're waiting to go back to their biological family. But we've decided that it's best to try to give them a family environment as much as we can, right? And so these balancing of roles in these different situations is really important.
If I can chime in briefly for Chia Terrence's question, because it has some bearing on the kinds of comments that we allow into the Facebook chat group, not in the chat group, but rather the larger group, which has some 16,000 people across the world. And we have had some organizations actually in Africa who post and say we are a family, but they're NGOs. And for us, there's a difference between a family and an NGO that's taking care of kids. Yes, I think as Bethany pointed out, that is taking part of an element of family, that's being taken on by a nonprofit, but it's quite different from family understood, you might say, as either some sort of a blood relation, marriage relation, or legal relationship where they're bound together in one of those ways, in some sort of commitment that's longer term. So the risk with saying everybody can be a family is that we dilute it so much that it becomes meaningless, right? So that's something we have to be careful about. And as Bethany pointed out, it has policy implications. If we just say everybody's a family as long as they care for each other, first of all, you have to define what care means. And then secondly, what are the implications for policy? Do two friends get the benefits that other families get, like insurance benefits, because they love each other and care for each other? So it's complicated, but I think for our purposes, just to answer, for those of you maybe wondering why your posts about your NGO are not making it into the Facebook group, that's the reason, because we're not promoting NGOs, we're promoting families.
I love all of those points. One thing that you'll notice when we talk about, this friend is like family, my dog is like family, we often include, whether we realize it or not, the like in there, right? We say they're like family. And so I think there's often, they can feel very much like family, but there's an understanding that there's something different in many cases between that versus this family that someone mentioned a lifelong commitment, right? There's a unique lifelong commitment, often, not always, that happens in a family that doesn't happen elsewhere. An example that I've heard is you might have a friend that's like family, but if they have an affair with your spouse, that friend probably isn't like family anymore, right? They're done. You can cut them out in a different way. When you cut out a sibling of your life and you say they're still connected to you in a way, you still always have this person who's family, who's not. Whereas friends you can move past. And so there's different, there's something to be said. It's nice to be inclusive and have large definitions of families, but it's really important to be careful about how you define them for policy terms. And that doesn't have anything to do, like not being family doesn't make these roles any less important that people are playing, and NGOs helping people, it's all very valuable and important. Wow, we got 8 minutes.
I'm still Oliver. Can I come in again? I have a worry question again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I still have this worry, like, can a child decide to be, let me say, okay, the mother maybe is no more, maybe the father, can he decide to belong to a particular family?
That's a really good question. And there's legal implications for that. I know here, if a child decides to be a part of a family or not, that the government doesn't care. The parents are still the people that they decide are responsible for caring for that child. One of my foster kids, when I told him he was going to go visit his parents, he told me he didn't want to. He wanted to stay with us. And so, but I understand it's not that child's job to decide who family is, right? That there's, be it emotionally and in their hearts and souls and the nourishment of family, that can come from what the child feels and perceives from other people. But again, we've got these different levels. We got the legal and the policy levels. And then, in some cultures, family, they do almost like adoptions, but without any legal stuff necessary. But in that culture, it is as good as an adoption. That child now becomes a member of a different family, and it's understood and accepted. So it can vary in different cultures and situations.
Yeah.
Leroy, And then I might just
Yeah,
briefly.
I still have a question when it comes to the single parent family. Suppose my sibling, we have a mother who is a single parent, and my sibling also went out to marry, but had a child. Should we also consider that child to be part of the single parent family?
You broke up a little there. So what was the
Okay,
situation? Who's your
connect?
sibling? You have a sibling who? Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I'm saying a single mother, and my little brother, my sibling, went out without getting married and had a child by somebody. But then he didn't leave the child there, but he brought the child back into our house. So should we consider that child to be part of our single family?
I think so you've got different issues. You've got issues of like what the government sees as family and what you see as family. And I think on a personal level, you could certainly see that child as a sibling and as part of your family. Because it's very personal in terms of how we define who people are and what roles are. But then you've got other issues too of who, okay, I've got to give you 3 minutes. Okay. So you've got those different levels of definitions that matter and play a role. And in some cultures, you might need to do legal paperwork to have them recognized as belonging to a certain family to get entitled to certain benefits, for example. Let me just. Okay, so I've got 2 minutes, but that's okay. I only have like 40 slides. I'm just going to introduce this because this will be like, ooh, look at the things we're going to talk about next week. And I might condense this a little bit next week. But next week, we're going to touch on demography. But I think talking about what is family, as much as it might feel like we didn't come to any, we didn't solve anything, I think that's important. I think what we're feeling is important because it brings it into all these other things that we're going to talk about. So we'll talk about demography, and demography is simply looking at numbers and graphs to see how different aspects of our population is changing. It's understanding how families are changing, where they live, what they do. It helps us understand how to support families and needs of families. For example, demographers might look at things like literacy in families or single parents or rates of divorce, and we're going to talk about all of those. And all of those things influence the family. And what's interesting is that demographic changes have implications in our own home. The changes in the family that are happening around us and more broadly impact us individually. They also have political implications. They have social implications. The governments care about how families are changing because it impacts society. At least they should care. And more broadly, demography goes hand in hand with social issues and family issues and policy interventions. And so we're going to talk about, and that'll go well together, talking about these policy considerations and things that families need to think about along with how families are changing. Because as families change, as people are aging, there's different needs in the family. As there are more single parents, potentially, there's different needs that we need to look at for the family. And so next week, we'll talk about how families are changing, along with, as Paul said, how families are staying the same and the implications, because the government wants a role in that. And it's our role to help, I think, drive policy that supports families, but also drive cautious policy so that those policies maybe don't infringe in other ways on families. It's a really careful balance. Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you. But next week, we're going to talk about like fertility rates, mortality rates, aging, family structure, all of those things. Those have been changing, and it's fascinating to see how they've been changing.
Great, Bethany. Thank you for kind of introducing us to families, the difficulties of defining family. I think it's really important to you all to think about kind of the policy implications of our definitions of families. Policies not just for governments, but also for nonprofits like ours. Like people ask us, so how do you guys define family? And we do have an encompassing definition in some way, but at the same time, it's not so encompassing that we include NGOs in non-governmental organizations in our definition of family. But for us, caring is really important. And that can include caring for children, or that can include caring for each other, but there's usually some sort of a legal, blood, or marriage relationship, right? So these three things: legal, blood, or marriage relationship involved in kind of defining that caring relationship. So so next time, as Bethany mentioned, next Sunday, you'll see her again. And next Sunday, as far as I understand, the next 2 Sundays, you actually meet her mom. For those of you who are not met her mom, because they teach at the same university. So it's pretty cool that we have a mom-daughter and a family diplomacy training. We have a mom and daughter kind of teaching us. And so definitely looking forward to that. I just want to pass 2 things by you. One is, as I mentioned early on, if you're not already part of the Facebook group, some of you may not be. I think most of you are. Please join the Facebook group. It's different from the chat group. The chat group is just for you guys as trainees. The Facebook group is a much larger group. It's got over 16,000 people across the world. And that is to kind of keep you apprised of other things. So it's just, the link is there in the Zoom chat. Go ahead and join it if you're not already part of it. And the last thing I want to do is take a photo of everybody. And so if you could turn on your cameras, Dia, who is in charge of taking screenshots throughout these meetings, is going to be taking a couple of 2 or 3, I guess, three screenshots of you guys all with your cameras on, ideally, and smiling. So Joshua, Priyo, who's having issues connecting, Chirunim, Farzana in Pakistan, and Ali, who I don't remember where you're joining us from. If you could turn on your camera, Justice as well, and Sammy in Pakistan. On 3, 1, 2, 3, smile. And then Dia, do you want to take,
Sure.
go ahead and
Yes.
take a couple more shots. 1,
Yeah, sure.
2, 3, smile.
All right, I think we're good.
Okay, excellent. Just in case people have their eyes closed, their heads down, et cetera, and so forth, we try to get as many of these shots. So we will be sharing these photos to that Facebook group so that you other people see what's going on. We also, just to remind you, we do video record these meetings. If you for some reason want to review something, you can do so. That's at our YouTube channel. So all of that will be posted to our Facebook group so that you can check on what's going on. Every week we'll be posting screenshots and the video to our Facebook group. All right, everybody. Thanks again to Bethany and to you all for participating. We're really looking forward to continuing with you and learning together about family and family diplomacy. Bye, everybody.
Bye.